All right, guys, welcome back. I have a very special guest today, Delana Luna. She is a spiritual consultant and maker of magical objects. Welcome.
Thank you. I loved my intro.
I love your intro too. I'm so
I'm into
intrigued
it.
by what you do. Can you give us a little bit of background, kind of who you are and what brought you into what you're currently doing?
Sure. I mean, it's like basically my whole life coming to a point. So, I'll just try and start somewhere and you can like pull out the threads that you
Okay,
like.
sure.
Uh, so, I think that I could say that I had a spiritual awakening. I mean, I've had clair abilities ever since I was a child, but I had a very heavy spiritual awakening, as in like Kundalini awakening, that Shakti started to move through me to like process a whole lot of trauma. At the same time, while I was doing a PhD, a creative PhD for my artwork, and that also happened at the same time that I separated myself from my family group completely and I was dealing with a chronic illness. So I was working with several spiritual teachers at once, and all of these, uh, wheels started turning. I specifically had a past life activation that connected with some teaching that I was having with another teacher because I became very interested in my ancestral roots. And through learning about where my family history is from, which is Danish, um, Viking Scots, and Italian, a lot of things that I've always been interested in my whole life started to make sense for me because I had a teacher that kept on describing what I was experiencing as shamanic. And I was struggling with that because I don't have a teacher as a shaman, and I also was struggling with the word in itself. And I wanted to find something more specific because to me, a shaman is Mongolian or Sami.
Okay.
And every other culture has their own word for their mystic, for their medicine maker, for their worker with spirit, right?
Yes, yes.
So I started going down this rabbit hole at the same time where all of these things were getting activated for me. And I discovered that certain things that I'd been doing in my arts practice and certain things that I'd been doing since I was a child were actually part of this offering that I have to the world, which is being able to recognize objects that have high energy or high chi. So if I go into an op shop or if I go walking in nature or whatever, these things will literally be like, hi, like, I'm so good looking, take me with you. And then over a period of time, I started to, craft with them and make them into like ritual tools. And I've also been sewing a lot of ceremonial robes from reclaimed fabrics from op shops. And it became clear to me through all of these communications that I had with these higher consciousness beings that I accessed through my ancestral magic that I was making magical objects. So I was taking these high resonance materials and forming them together to make something that was for another practitioner to enhance their power. So when I was in the workshop making these things, spirit would be able to communicate with me and tell me what the object was for and what kind of healer I was making it for. So I've made very personalized objects for people that I've never met.
Wow. That's amazing. I have so many questions, but
Sure, it's
I'm
it's
being
hard to
guided
condense
to,
down. I need to practice my elevator pitch.
oh my gosh, this was amazing. I feel like I just got activated by you speaking, and I'm sure
A
anyone
lot of
listening
people
did
say
as
that they
well.
find it creatively activating, yeah, which is really, really nice for me to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, I just love how everything kind of happened at once. And I know for so many of us, it does happen all at once. And at that time, it can be overwhelming when you go through that, right? When I went through my spiritual awakening, it felt like the same thing, and it almost feels like you're in a tunnel, right? But when you get out of it, you realize why you did, right? And yours was for this very specific purpose, I believe.
Yeah.
And what really is standing out to me is ancestry, because I think that's something that a lot of us are interested in. Like, from a very surface level. You see a lot of people trying to get their DNA, seeing where they're from, but when you tap in on a spiritual level, there's a whole nother meaning. Um, so I would love to hear more about your magical objects, kind of like, can you give us an example of like one of what one might be? And then I would love to hear more about the ancestry as well, because that just aspect of
Sure.
everything is just very intriguing to me.
I'll give you two examples. Um, so I was working with runes because that's connected to my Scandinavian heritage, and it's something that I've been doing since I was probably about 14 years old. But when I opened myself up to having uh, an intentionally known ancestral link to it that is and I'm not talking about like many generations ago. I'm Australian, so I'm a mutt, so I'm half Italian, and then quarter Danish and quarter Scots Viking. So that's what makes up my whole ancestral makeup. So I've been working with runes and I started getting into it more. And again, with that intentionality, and I was learning and I was working with a teacher at the time. And what I decided to do was to make things that were relevant to each rune sign as we were moving through the part of the year that the planets actually move through the runes like they move through the zodiac.
Can you quickly describe what a rune is?
Yeah, it's a symbolic language. So you would have seen them before. I use something called the Elder Futhark, which is 24
Okay.
um, rune signs. No, sorry, it's
Okay.
more than that. It's three sets of 12. Bad math.
Oh, okay.
Bad
Okay.
math.
36. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and they are attributed to having Scandinavian heritage, and they're attributed to be used as divination symbols. So
Oh,
you would see them carved onto stones and wood, like small round or sticks. So I
okay.
guess they're kind of like the white person version of the I Ching.
Okay. I also don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. So they're all cultures have divination tools, and a lot of them are carved with symbols. And the really interesting thing about that is that as you start communicating with higher consciousness beings,
Mhm.
you have to become very adept at unpacking symbology because how they will communicate to you is through sending you something that seems like a static image because they'll use your subtle channels. So they're going to use your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your clairsentience, your claircognizance, right, to communicate with you. And it will give you what seems to be one thing, right? So when you look at a symbol drawn on a piece of paper, it looks like it's some lines making up one thing, right? And in modern language, that would equal a word, okay? And
Right.
so a word might have a slightly more complex meaning. But when you get to something that's a symbol has associative power, a symbol has sound, and a symbol has all of these things about it that you can unpack. So higher consciousness beings try to distill what it is that they want to communicate to us into a form that we can understand. So they use symbols, pictures, images, feelings, or
Yeah.
they'll lead you to, picking up a certain book or whatever.
Right.
So you become more adept at unpacking these symbols and the runes, the tarot, the I Ching, all of these other
Got
things,
it.
they're a way for us to communicate with anything that's on a higher level.
That makes a lot of sense. And as you were speaking about it, it's something that I haven't had awareness in. And it makes so much sense and it resonates so much. And I love how you mentioned sound because when you were describing that, I was like, this sounds like every symbol has a different frequency, almost like hertz, right? Or like if somebody does a sound bowl, right? And that frequency gives you the message that you need to hear. And for people who aren't as, you know, into their spiritual journey, I like how this is kind of an easy tool to get there as well. Because when we use something physical with spirit, I think it really becomes more concrete and embodied than some of the woo woo stuff that people may be intimidated by.
Sure. And I think for tribal cultures or older cultures, it really makes sense that whatever the medicine maker was would use this heavily charged, symbolic language to try and communicate to everybody else. Because what you could do is take one of those and use it as a meditation tool. So it's got, one or two words. No, so the third rune is Urus, and that's supposed to be for strength and speed, right? But
Okay.
that's at a very, very, very base level. And then you've got this shape that's a great shape, and you know that it comes from being related to the aurochs, which is an ox. It's like a really big, powerful animal, okay? So
Yeah.
you've got that base thing.
Okay.
But Urus, when you go into it and you meditate on it, has got so many more meanings that you can unpack from that, and all symbolic stuff does.
Hmm.
So the the person in the village that was connected to spirit would have found it much easier to communicate with the rest of the village, by
Yeah.
giving them these symbols to meditate on. So using it as like a go-between, because if you're trying to talk to somebody about something spiritual, and you've just got a download, and it's a whole lot of information that you understand all at once, great, that's good for you, but how do you communicate that to somebody else?
Right.
So to me, that's been all part of my journey, is disseminating, especially with tarot and runes, because they are connected to my ancestry. So I feel like that's my magic. I'm allowed to use those, with nobody getting upset with me.
Yeah.
I've thought a lot since I was 14 years old about, like, what is this? How do they work? And that's something that I think it runs across many, 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 many cultures, is that you've got this different way of speaking, this symbolic and semiotic language.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Um, and how can people, I guess, what is your perspective on people using symbols? Like, I know we don't want to appropriate cultures. Do you think, because I want to bring that ancestry back, right? Like for me, my roots are in India. What do you know what I should be using? Or like for somebody else that is interested in runes, maybe they're not able to because they don't have that in their DNA. Like, what is your
Oh, I think the
intuitive
tarot and runes
perspective?
are open
Okay.
practices.
Okay.
Um, for things that are closed practices, you would want somebody to gift it to you. And
Hmm.
for your own heritage, what I would encourage you to do is to go through processes of waking up your clair abilities,
Hmm.
with your intuition as the overarching guide. And what happens when you start waking up your subtle channels is you'll hear, you will be led to what it is that you need to know. And so if you're asking your ancestors or your spirits, like, what's my what's my home language, or I just spoke to this chick that I thought, the stuff that she did was really cool, what are my symbols? And
Yeah.
you're working on trying to, like, open up those channels, that information will come to you.
Oh, that's so
You'll
cool.
see a book in a
Yeah.
library or a bookstore, or you'll start searching online and get freaked out about how specific, the answers can get.
I
It's
love that.
all waiting for everyone.
That's amazing. Like, this is like the earthy, grounded spirituality aspect that I personally believe has been missing and that I don't think is spoken about enough. Because it's just something more grounded into our reality. If that makes a lot of sense. Like
For
it's a
sure,
really good
because
tool to connect. Yeah.
as a human being, what you've got is your body and your brain, right?
Yeah.
They're the things that you've got. And part of the gift that you get, oh, that sounded so wanky, I'm sorry. Part of being alive, okay,
Yeah.
and having a brain and a body, is
Yeah.
that you have these extrasensory abilities. Everybody has their clairs.
Yes.
And of course, some people are going to be more talented in one area than others. Okay, they're going to be switched on more. They're going to have a preference towards it, whatever, like the
Yep.
what we were talking about before. Like the many varieties of human. So everybody can do these things, and if you start off by respecting and understanding what it is that's happening inside you as an antenna, as a machine, that helps you have a realistic sense of what communicating with the spirit realm is going to be like.
That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like there's a lot of connected consciousness that flows through these symbols as well, especially as you were speaking about back in the day when people used it, right? It's
Yeah.
it's almost like I got this like vibe of like telepathy in a way because it's like, hey, let me channel my message into this symbol and you hold it and then you receive the information you need to in whichever way you do. But it's almost like a game of telephone and telepathy, and everybody has their own perspective and way that they kind of are processing the information, and I like how you said
Well, and I mean,
antenna, it's all coming.
nature, all of these first languages and basic sounds. I actually like to think of the runes as the sounds that existed before matter. So the sounds that created matter, which is resonance, like you were speaking about. Now, all of the, well, I shouldn't say all of, runes and tarot are very connected to nature and they're very connected to human experience with nature. And when you take one small part of it and you start unpacking it, not only does it give you pertinent messages and knowledge for whatever it is that you need to contemplate at that time, it also brings you back to nature. And you realize that all of that wisdom is here on earth while we're in this particular flesh sack, have this particular brain. We can communicate to spirit through nature, and it's been distilled by cultures over time into these symbols. And at that point, it always becomes open-ended. Like if you do become contemplative with it, what you're going to end up with at the end is like, oh, wow. And then that leads me on to the next thing. And then, of course, the thought that comes after that is about how everything is connected, how we're all connected on the earth and that this nature is precious, and it's um, how we can create these higher levels of things is actually going right back to, as you're saying, the earthy spirituality.
Yes, yes. And you kind of described it, but like what effect does this have? So like what effects do these symbols have? And more specifically, the objects that you create based on the feedback that you receive and your personal experience.
Well, the things that I create, I tune specifically to the person. So I'm either making them in my workshop and I know that it's for somebody, that is going to see it at some stage on my shop or on my website or whatever and be like, oh my God, that's mine. Just
Yeah,
in the same way that if I walk into an op shop, the things that are like, pick me, take me home.
yeah.
I know that they're supposed to come with me now. So uh, that's what the effect of the objects will have on other people. But then if I get a commission or I get to work with somebody as I'm making the object, I take them through a, I was just about to say a journey of self-discovery and then puked a little in my mouth. But okay, so Um, I've designed the tarot reading, and the purpose of the tarot reading is to really focus on that person as a practitioner. Well, and not even as a practitioner, it's to focus on that person in how their magic, and I think everybody has magic,
Okay.
um, manifests in this lifetime.
Yes.
And from the tarot spread, I use my clair abilities to notice which positions are really important for each person, and they will correspond with a rune sign. And I do that through the same process that I've been talking to you about, which is contemplation and using my subtle channels. And then I'll take 3 or 4 rune signs and I'll work with them over and over again until I find the right bind rune. And that is a symbolic and sound representation of how that person's magic manifests on earth at this time. So it's their own private, personal,
Wow.
magical symbol. And then I take that and I carve it into something or I sew it into the robe. And so not only does like if we just take a ceremonial robe, for example, not only am I getting messages from the person's guides and from, anything else that wants to support the process as I'm making it. So the robe itself becomes symbolically rich. And then I have the reading and I sew the symbol into it. And then after that, usually I've had a little bit of communication with the person that I'm making it with, and I make them what I call an activation meditation. So it's about them being able to take the object onto into liminal space, so into the spirit realm with them to become an ally so that it exists in the spirit realm as well, that they can use it when they go into those other spaces to do their healing.
Okay, awesome. So they would have it maybe by their altar if they have one, or they would hold it during a meditation, or perhaps keep it in their room or somewhere that they always see. And would it be like, I'm sure it varies, but is this their symbol? Is this the creation something they use for a period of time, or do people use it for their lifetime, or is it like they come and go? Because I know there's different, with objects, like
I
it
I
kind of
think
flows,
that
right?
what I aim for is to make an heirloom item.
Cool. So
I
you're
want it to be
creating that
something that's,
ancestry almost to like be
yes.
passed on. Wow. And it all circles back to the
Yeah, I
ancestry.
hadn't actually made that direct connection and I really, really like it.
I
Yes.
really like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. That is so cool. I know I have so many more follow-up questions, but perhaps at another time we could, dig into those because there's a lot of substance here as far as, all of these energies and what we could talk about. But I think this is just such an important topic that a lot of people may not even know about. I had so much curiosity during our conversation, which is amazing. And where can people check you out? What are your specific offerings? I know you kind of pretty much mentioned it throughout, but would love to know where people can find you.
Sure. Well, Instagram, my website, Threads. Threads is actually somewhere where I'm most active.
Okay.
And my website. So there's a service page on my website that people can book through. They can just DM me. There's a lot of my artwork up on my Instagram. And so everything is the Museum of Magical Objects.
Awesome. And I will link all of that below so people can just click on it and check you
Oh,
out.
and
Oh,
one thing that I do really want to say is that I just opened up a shop on an independent marketplace that is no AI and it's not run by AI. And so it's called Fae Home and it's run by a woman that is amazing. And she specifically has collected all of these spiritual and witchy practitioners to give them their own marketplace because obviously a lot of other larger marketplaces are feeding all of your work into AI. So this is somewhere that you can go where your work, remains yours. It's not going to get reproduced in plastic.
it's organic. Yeah, awesome. I'm definitely interested in Fay Home as well. There's so much that I'm gonna look up after our conversation too, because I'm so
It's great.
interested to learn more. And do you go by Luna or
Yeah,
Delana?
Delana or Luna is fine. Yeah,
Delana
both.
or Luna? Okay, well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Delana. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check out my socials at The Om Light on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. You can also find me at theomlight.com. Sessions are now open and available. One-on-one sessions are super helpful for anything you may be going through in your life to help you feel more aligned and clear.